In Joshua chapter 5, verse 13, as Israel was preparing to go into the first battle of the Promised Land, as they're getting ready to go march around the walls of Jericho, Joshua sees a man of war and he asks him, "Are you for us or are you for our enemies? Which side are you in?" And the man answers, "Neither." Now, we live in a culture that doesn't allow neither, right? There's no room for middle ground in our culture. Like, you've got to be here or you've got to be there. And if you're not here, then we're going to push you way over there. And yet this man says to Joshua, "Neither. I'm not on your side, and I'm not on your enemy's side. I'm only here as the commander of the army of the Lord." Well, shouldn't that mean that he was on Joshua's side? Like in the way that we work, doesn't that mean he's on Joshua's side? But the reality is, I'm here to keep you on God's side, Joshua. I'm here to make sure you don't veer away because you're capable of it. And so when Jesus comes, when the Spirit lives in us, it's not because we're in the right. It's to keep us in His way. Because we have this tendency to veer. We have this tendency to wander. We have this tendency to grab hold of things we were never meant to grab hold of and to make them more important than they were ever meant to be. Can I tell you something tonight that might hurt your feelings a little bit? God's not on your side. No matter which side of any argument you happen to be on, God's not on your side. The question that matters is, are we on God's side? Are we hanging on the words of Jesus? Are we living with Him and for Him so that He can live in and through us? Are we living for the things that God wills and loves and desires? Are our priorities this? The glory of God, the salvation of the lost, the forgiveness of sins, reconciliation of men, and the redemption of souls to the kingdom of God. Because those are all the things that matter to God, and they should be all the things that matter to us. And yet we let these other things sneak in, and they get more of our conversation, and they get more of our thought process, and they grab hold of our hearts, and before we know it, we're anxious over things that aren't even supposed to be a part of our lives. Before we know it, we are dividing from friends and family over things that have nothing to do with the kingdom of God. Before we know it, we are giving our lives to things that are dying. Instead of living for the things that will never die. I think we have to let the Spirit search us again, and so that we can be sure that He's leading us in paths of righteousness for His name's sake, rather than in the paths that we've called righteous. Have you ever noticed that in Jesus' day, it was a day of political upheaval and He never addressed it? Right? Like, go read through the Gospels. He doesn't ever rebuke Rome. He never sits at a table and strategizes with the leaders of Israel. What did he do? He watched his father and did everything he saw the father do. What did he do? He loved and he served. He prayed and he healed. He preached, and he was altogether different from everybody else. He called out injustice, but not the way we do. He did it to show the heart of the Father, not to exalt an opinion or an ideology of men. Jesus lifted up every downtrodden group of his day without pressing anybody else down. Go through the Gospels. He lifted up women. He lifted up Samaritans. He lifted up foreigners. He lifted up children. Every downtrodden group of the day, Jesus came and He lifted them up, but not by pressing anyone else down, but by loving all. He rebuked the hypocrites and the hard-hearted without excluding them from the salvation that He came to purchase.